Thank
Nice
you. Hello, hello. Welcome everybody to Happy Hump Day. Yes, if you are
Yeah.
watching us live, it is Wednesday. Most people's not least favorite day of the week, although I guess maybe that's a Monday. But listen, if you love what you do, which by the end of this conversation, you're going to learn how to do that. Every day is a happy day. I'm
That's
Claire
right.
Wasserman, founder and author of Ladies Get Paid. We are an educational platform, global community, and book all about helping women earn more, live better. Took me years to come up with that catchphrase. And you know
It's
what's so
good.
awesome
It's
about
so
my
good.
job is as part of running a community, I get to meet really phenomenal women. And one of those women is Gala Jackson Dobbins.
Hello. So excited
Um,
to be here.
Yes. And so our conversation today, well, I'll give you a little brief intro of Gala in just a second, but our conversation today, we're going to be talking about her book called Courage, Clarity, and Confidence, Redefining Success and the Way You Work. It's really about helping you live and work in alignment with your strengths and values. I have a feeling that Gala has a personal story or personal journey that taught her a lot of the lessons that she then puts into the book. But the brief bio for her, and then I'll let Gala go into more details since she knows herself best. She is passionate about helping women stand in the power of their femininity. As an accomplished, certified executive career and leadership development coach, she works with domestic and international women to redefine and take ownership of their success. She empowers women to discover and live in alignment with the strongest, boldest, most courageous version of themselves. I could go on, but I'll let Gala do that herself. Thank you so much for being here.
Claire, thanks so much for having me. And most importantly, thanks for holding this space for us, right? To have these conversations, to talk about careers and life and how to get more money. Because listen, when you earn more,
Everything
everything gets better. That lifestyle changes 125%.
Yeah.
So excited to be here. Thanks for the introduction. I am an executive career and leadership coach. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm your next door neighbor. But as you mentioned, my story is one that I found myself checking all the boxes, doing all the things that I was supposed to do, all the shoulds, right? All the things that we should do, right? Go to college, buy the house, get the new car, wait for the husband, have a baby, all of those things, right? Checking all the boxes. But what I realized early in my career, pre-husband and baby, was that all the things that I should do, I did, but I still wasn't happy. How do you follow all the rules, do all the things, and still not end up happy? A lot of you are saying it's quite easy to do because that's your story. It's definitely my story. So I embarked on looking for a career coach. I was like, well, I need help. I need somebody who's got some skills that can help me figure these things out. Well, when I went looking for a career coach, and I won't tell you how long ago that was, old white men were my options. I said, oh, this is a problem. And so I became the career coach that I needed in for my own self. And of course, did it the hard way, earned my stripes 100%, but then took everything that I learned and started pouring it out to other people. And then I was introduced to resume writing and coaching. And I was like, I have reached the promised land. Like, this is what I'm called to do. This is my career path. This is why my story was so challenging. And I talk about that in the book, like all the things that I navigate as a woman, but also as a woman of color and trying to establish yourself in your career. And what happens when you do all the things that you're supposed to do and it still doesn't add up. Right. And what I put together in the book is what I call a clarity framework. I'm here to help women gain the courage, get the clarity that they need, and then walk in confidence. And that's what the book is all about. And I don't know a single woman at any stage in her career or life that's not looking for at least one of those three things at any given time.
And just those of you who've been watching for the last few sessions, I have terrible construction happening outside of my building, so I'm going on and off with my mute. It's also training me to not interject, which is a good interview skill set to have. Active listening. Quick question for you before we dive into some of the tangible takeaways of the book. In your own journey of sort of letting go of the shoulds and redefining, success for yourself.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what did you find hardest? But I mean, there's a lot of hard things. So maybe there's a certain like moment or memory that you have
Yeah.
where there was an aha moment. You were struggling with something and then it just clicked for you.
Yeah, yeah. So I can vividly remember one evening coming home after work, and I was in a new house that I had purchased. I had a new car in the driveway. The house was fully furnished. I'm laying on the couch and I'm thinking, I hate my job. And I am so dissatisfied with like where I am. And the moment for me was like, I felt guilty. I felt guilty. I felt guilty as a woman of color to have acquired all of these things, right? And to still not be happy. I was like, something is wrong with me. It's me. Something is wrong with me. Like, this is what this is. I need, like, before I realized I need a coach, I was like, I probably need a therapist, right? Because it is me. Something is the matter. But it's like when you go through and you listen to all of the opinions and the expectations of others, and then when you have that moment where you're looking yourself in the mirror and you're facing all the decisions that you've made, all the choices that you've made, and you realize that it's still not adding up to what you're supposed to have or how you're supposed to feel, it is a moment where you have to reconcile that joker. And you have to say, okay, I got to figure this out because this is a problem. And I could have continued on, right? But I would have been inauthentic. I would have fallen into the trap I think a lot of women fall into, a lot of professionals fall into, where you just go through the motions and you never really live or show up, right? And what was on the other side of that for me that I did not know was entrepreneurship and starting my own private coaching practice and really being able to serve others in really meaningful ways. Like, I could not reconcile the way that my parents worked and worked for so long and so many hours. And at the end of their retirement was like, here's a Rolex. Thanks for your service. I couldn't reconcile that. And I couldn't reconcile it in my own life to say, this is where I spend majority of my time going to work. And if I don't enjoy that, and if I can't enjoy my life, what am I doing? And so I had to reconcile that. And, dealing with that guilt is not easy. But the first step is being honest and saying, yeah, I feel guilty, but I'm not happy. And this is why I'm not happy. And now I need to do something about it because this is about the rest of my life. I was in my early 20s. I had to figure that out. I was not going to live my whole life miserable.
Right.
I just couldn't.
So that's kind of the first part here of like the courage, right? The courage to be honest with yourself.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes a lot of us, we figure out first what we don't want before we can figure out what we do want. All right. So then there's the figuring out what you do want, the clarity part, the redefining success on your own terms. So what are some steps to doing that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So in the book, I talk about the clarity framework. And one of the first things that you're going to do in that clarity framework is acknowledge what is no longer working, just like what you said, right? What is broken here? What needs to be addressed, right? The next thing you're going to do is study your strengths. You need to know what makes you you, right? And I love a good strengths finder. I love a good assessment, if that is helpful to you. I think through the perspective, what are the things that have brought joy to my life? What do I enjoy doing? What does not feel like work, which is so easy to overlook, right? Your strengths in that capacity because it doesn't feel like work. What are the things that don't feel like work? Then I actually say, it's time for you to connect with your values. And that was huge for me because I realized that I had family values, right, that I was raised with, but I didn't have my own personal values and what was really important to me in my life going forward. And there were elements of what I grew up with that I carried forward, but there were things that were also different, right, for me. So really connecting with your values is going to be key. And I think that your values really are the North Star. And that's the key to alignment, is that, am I living in integrity with my values, right, on a day-to-day basis, down to where I'm going to work and what I'm doing with my money, with my time, all of that, right? Really explore your experiences, like do a deep dive, inventory your experiences, both professional and personal, right? To really pull out those key skills that you want to continue doing going forward, that you're like, I want to do these things. I can add value in these ways, right? The next part is also really intense, but it's really critical. Start to narrate your own story. There are so many other people who are telling us what we should be doing, how we should be doing it. There's the court of public opinion that's available every day. It's easy to compare yourself to people on the internet, from Instagram to LinkedIn, and she looks like she has it together. And why can't I? What's your story? Because nobody can tell your story. But if you don't start telling your story, other people will make up a story about what they think you are. And it's unfortunate because it'll be a snippet or a snapshot of your life and not your full story. So you've got to start being comfortable with your own voice, speaking up and advocating for yourself. And then last but not least, as you have those pieces, decide to embody. And this is really critical. You have agency here. You have choices. You have to decide that you're going to walk in the strongest, boldest, most courageous version of yourself and show up every day. And it's not easy, right? I don't look like this every day, right? But my posture and my heart and in my intentions, right? There you go. Get it, girl. My posture and my heart and my intention and the decisions that I make is in alignment with my values, is in alignment with what my strengths are, getting comfortable with saying no, right? And honoring my own voice and my needs. So that is really some key takeaways for how to start to redefine that success for yourself.
Do you find in the work that you do, in the coaching work and in the workshops that you lead, that there are certain aspects of this framework that we universally struggle with? I mean, clearly we struggle with all of it. Otherwise you wouldn't have, there's a need for me to teach you this.
That's right.
Moments within it of, okay, I'm starting to narrate my story, but wait, do I have value? Or who would want to so just curious, what are kind of like patterns you maybe seen that people stumble with in that roadblock? I mean, in that framework, excuse me.
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. It is always narrating your story. The part about connecting to your own voice, people cry. I'm prepared for it every time, right? And sometimes I cry with them, right? There is something magical about the moment a woman realizes just how powerful and valuable her own voice is. Like, it is like, I get a little misty-eyed just thinking about it. It's the game changer, I think, for every woman. Because one of the things I'll ask in a coaching session is, what do you need? And I'll pause. And the response is, nobody is asking me what I need. Or I can't remember the last time somebody asked me what I needed. Or what is it that you want? Right? Nobody's asking me those questions, right? And really listening without judgment or criticism or opinion about what it is that I want. So holding space for my clients to be able to say that and own it and have agency over it is really powerful, but it's also really hard because you got to push past all the layers of things that you thought you would be doing and things that people thought, you would be or become, or how they thought you would handle something or be an asset to their life instead of being, the main star in your own life. Right. So that piece of really finding your voice is really challenging, but it's also the most beautiful work in the process.
I'm curious. I know with your book, it's, when I was just looking at the description of it here, it's described as a new playbook to help women reconnect with their voice and values to redefine work and success.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who's written a book in the space,
Mm-hmm.
I am curious. I mean, the self-doubt that comes up in our, it's very meta as we write these sort of books. So how did you feel really good that you were providing something? Didn't have to reinvent the wheel because, as we've already discussed, your voice is the most important thing. It's not always what you're saying, it's how you're saying it, right? Who needs to hear it? But I'm curious for you, how did you dig into differentiating this book, providing something, at least a new perspective, and then also staying strong in believing in that you were the one who should be saying it?
Yeah. So it's funny because I know that you talked about imposter syndrome yesterday, right? So it's all of that self-doubt comes up and you're like, this is nothing new. Like, nobody wants to read this. Are you kidding? That's how I felt when I started writing this book. When my editor reached out to me about this book, I had a very clear idea about what I wanted to write and what I wanted to do. And I set out on that trajectory, and that self-doubt in those moments all came up. And then some really pivotal things started to happen in my life. I lost my dad. I lost my best friend. I got married and found out that I was having a baby. First child, and that baby was born early, and we spent several weeks in the NICU. I stopped writing completely. I was like, I'm no expert. I don't have anything new to say. This is not going to happen, just to be honest. What changed for me was when those traumatic events happen in succession of each other, you have to reevaluate your life. Like, being a mom is a whole nother level of identity, right? Transformation that happens. And you're going to find out very soon what that's like. But that changes you completely. And so for me, I felt like life put me at the very bottom. Like I was knocked completely to my knees. And what brought me back to life was everything I talk about in this book, right? That piece of like, I have to acknowledge the trauma. I'm in pain. I'm hurting. I'm grieving. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't feel like an expert. I fake it till you make it anymore. I ain't got that, right? What can I do, right? What about me do I know about myself? I know things about resilience, and I know things about patience, and I know things about the interconnectedness of all things, right? Those strengths, right? And then it's like, okay, what are the things that I really value in light of all of the things that have happened, right? And I'm going through what is now called the clarity framework, but it was all those things that I needed early in my career when I was figuring it out. And here I am at a major pivotal transition in my life again. And all of those principles show up again. And one of the things that I love about this book and about your book and other books is that the content that's in them is enduring content, right? Whenever you find yourself in a major transition or a pivot, you can go back to these resources and they still hold true, right? And I think there's something about being a woman of color, specifically a Black woman, in this space talking about these things, because let's just be honest, because I'm honest, I'm a realist here, right? It's one thing to hear a non-person of color talk about how they became successful. It's a different conversation when you hear and see someone who looks like you, who has a similar background and experience as you, talk about the struggle and their story and how they overcame and provide a framework. It's a different perspective. It's a different conversation. And so here I am, right? I'm doing it afraid, right? You hope that your book's going to be like a bestseller and like really do well in all of these things. But what was true for me is that the work that I've been doing and the work that I've been doing with my clients, it makes a difference and it matters. And so I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to decide, here we go, to be the strongest, boldest, most courageous version of myself and put that in this book and then put it out into the world. It's not my job to decide what happens to it, or what it does or becomes. My goal and my assignment is to complete the work, right? To write the book and put it out there, right? And I'm sure you maybe felt the same way, Claire, like writing your book, you're like, I don't know, right? Like where this is going to go and what's going to happen, and look at where you are now.
No, it was so game changing when I realized that so much of my writer's block was coming from obsessing over things that I couldn't control, but that we use as measures of success. So,
Yes.
Everything from even like, will my editor like this? Right? You do your best, well, you can't control that. To getting on the bestseller list. And then I lived in fear of getting canceled. So there was that. And I just realized I had to relearn the lessons that I thought I learned already. But you just keep relearning it because you experience things in a more profound way when you go through, whether it's a trauma or, quite frankly, just high stakes, right? This is why I tell people to sort of embrace the rockiness of stuff, because it means that you're probably you're leveling up, right? You care. You're not playing it small. And then I had to shift it from, okay, these are external things that I'm caring about, which are important, but what can I do today? And how can I make this fun? Like, how can I make this serve me? Right. Which feels like it's totally flipping the script as a coach, right? Because you're here to serve others. But I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. I want to learn about myself in this process. I want to create a process of writing that's maybe different, and maybe teach me a new way of time management. There were just so many lessons that came out of this. So now I look at the book, I'm like, oh man, I got so much more to say. But it was really revolutionary to go through. It's almost like, thank you all for giving me the opportunity to grow.
Right. It's like the test comes, right? Like when you're getting ready to do this and you're like, is this good enough? Life's like, oh, let me give you a test. Let's test it out. Since you don't believe it, right? Since you're struggling with the doubt, let's test it out. Let's see if it does work, right? Let me throw something at you. And then you're like, yeah, this works. And you have that like new level of conviction, right?
And it wasn't even about the book. It was about you
at all.
The process.
At all. Exactly. And your ability to then share that process with other people, right? I just think, we have to really examine what metrics we're using for success.
Mm-hmm.
and really have some honest conversations about that. And really think about success outside of the context of what we use here, like in the US, right? Like the certain status, the certain dollar amount, like all this extra stuff, right? And really wade through that. And to your point, it really is about you, right?
And that it's fluid.
Yes.
That's why this stuff, I mean, to your point of like, keep coming back to the book, because like
Yep.
your life is not static. So yeah,
No,
I'm
and
curious
success is
for
not
you,
linear
and success is certainly not linear. So
at
I'm
all.
curious for you in various times of your life, or in the lives of your clients, the redefining success and redefining it and redefining it, right? So maybe a time when you thought it was a certain way. So we know the beginning of your story, but
Yeah.
even now in your own entrepreneurial journey of, okay, success looks like this. The way that I'm working is working for me. And then all of a sudden it's not, right? Things change, become a mom, etc.
Right.
Priorities shift, maybe values change. So how do you have that conversation with yourself?
Yeah. I tell clients, and I haven't hosted one in a while since I had my son and all the pandemic stuff, but I used to do like an annual like goal setting retreat where it's like you need to sit down and talk about what this last year has been about, what has happened, what have you accomplished, what has been things that you've enjoyed, what have been things that you've not enjoyed. Like you need to have regular check-ins with yourself on an ongoing basis, and not just once a year. I think about it on a quarterly type of basis, right? You need to check in with yourself and get a pulse on how you're doing, and then have a larger conversation right at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, to really evaluate some of those pieces. Because like we're saying, success is not linear and things change. And you need to have dedicated space that you hold for yourself. We as women are notorious for giving so much and leaving nothing for ourselves, right? And so for me, that's what that looks like. I have regular check-ins every week with myself. I sit down once a quarter and evaluate things and say, is this working for me? Is this the direction that I want to go in? As my family dynamics shift, as marriage and kids and all that stuff shift, do I need to go in a different direction? And then not being afraid, right? Knowing that I am capable of managing change, navigating change, taking risk and coming out on the other side because I know me. And because I'm comfortable with myself and my own skin, and I know my voice, and I know my values, and I know my strengths. And that has served me and my clients well, right? Getting to the crux and the foundation of who you are and realizing that resilience is enduring in any situation that you find yourself, right?
Do you have any example? Because I can, as you're speaking, I'm like, I'm already thinking about some major shifts that happened for me during the pandemic in terms of looking at the way that I work, the kind of business that I run.
Yeah.
And that was a transformational time for so many people. Curious for you, again, whether it's your own life or your clients' lives, where the person had like that aha moment of, okay, this is not working. Now I got to figure out something new, and kind of taking us through. And I know you've covered this already a little bit, but I love a good story.
Yeah. So I can think of several clients, right, who go through this place. One in particular is an attorney, and I actually talk about her in the book, who was like, hey, I have the status, right? I've achieved what my family has expected of me. I am recognized in my industry as being really great at what I do. And she was like, but I am struggling. Like I am miserable. Like I hate it. I need to get out. Like I feel like I'm dying. And she's like, I know that's really strong, but I feel like I'm dying, like because of all of this facade that I've built and I'm holding up, right, for myself. And she was just so disconnected from who she was and what she really wanted. She was caught up in, what if it looks like I'm a failure, right, to my family? Or what if it, like I go into this, she really wanted to open an ice cream shop, like go figure, right? Total polar opposite from what she was doing in her career, but it was a family business for her family. And she wanted to continue on that legacy. And she's like, this does not make sense. And so we had to reconcile where she was with where she wanted to be and validate that what she wanted to do was worthwhile, right? And to think about what success looked like, because she had a very clear definition of success and everyone around her had a very clear definition of success, and continuing her family's ice cream shop was not it. Okay. Like not at all. Right. And so really being honest with yourself about those pieces, right? And saying, these are my values. I've traded in what I really wanted for what other people think that I should have or I should be doing, but these are my values and this is what's important to me. And the hang up for her was like, but I will have felt like the first 20 something years of my career was a waste. Like I did all of this stuff, navigated all these pieces, got to this place to then go do this. Like how? What story do I tell? How do I explain that to people? Right. And I'm sure that someone watching is getting that. They're like, yeah, I got all this stuff. My family's looking at me. Like, I don't have the quote unquote luxury of like going and doing what I want to do. But what I tell people is that it may seem like a luxury to like pivot and go and do what you really feel called to do and what you're led to do, but it is necessary. It's not optional. And life will continue to throw things at you that you feel like, is life getting harder for me? Yeah, it's going to keep getting harder until you pay attention to what's calling you to go and do and transition and to be honest with yourself and to pivot in that direction. And it will keep showing up. And it shows up in a variety of ways, right? I won't go into all of them because I know like I want to be mindful of the audience and maybe some things are sensitive for people, but you know the things that keep popping up for you that you continue, quote unquote, keep struggling with until you're ready to have some conversations about what's really not working and really take the risk and deem yourself worthy of the risk. It's going to keep showing up. It's going to keep being a problem. It's going to keep being a challenge. It doesn't matter which job you change to, it's going to still show up. And that's what I have found. And that's what my clients have found is that I can change to a different industry and a different title, but until I've dealt with me and really showing up and my value, it's going to keep following me until I deal with it.
What happened did she open up or did she continue with the ice cream or tell me how does it end or do I need to read
what's the cliffhanger, right? So she made an exit plan to leave that job and started partnering with her sister and her dad to start creating that ice cream shop and revamping the branding and realized that she could bring in other professionals to help her do all the like the day-to-day in the trenches stuff so that it could be successful, right? We think about some of the most famous ice cream brands in the world. How do you think they got started, right? Most of them are mom and pops, right? Like meaning they were family businesses that bloomed into these entities. And so I haven't talked to her in a while, but the last where we left our time together was that she had an exit plan. She had a strategy for growing that business, and that is what she was going to do. I think the most important work in that is that she found herself and deemed her desires worthy and then made a plan to go and do it.
Oh, incredible. Yeah. Final words of wisdom before I have you tell everybody where they can, buy the book and obviously connect with you. But yeah, I mean, you've already dropped so many gems. Is there anything left that you haven't yet covered for us today?
Gosh, there's always plenty, but I'll just say, one of the things that I see right now is that we just keep trying to go back to business as usual. This is not that. And it will never be business as usual. And if you find yourself in a place where you are just like, I can't keep faking it anymore, you owe it to yourself to be honest and start having real conversations and then to bet on yourself. It may be hard. There may be some nuances along the way. But one thing that I know for sure in my own life and what I'm seeing with my clients is that when you get to the other side and you're playing by your own rules of engagement and you have that agency back, it has always been worth it. Yeah. And the success that you dream of, that you thought that you were going to chase in that traditional role of faking it till you make it, is waiting for you with your most authentic self, right on the other side.
Yay. Yeah. Love it. Where can we get our hands on this book? And also focusing on clients, where can people, as I always say, find you, follow you, and most importantly, pay you?
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. So there are a couple places you can find me. The most central place that you can find me is galajackson.com. So galajackson.com is where you can find the central hub for everything associated with me. You can also follow me on Instagram at Gala_Jackson, Gala_Jackson on the Instagram. LinkedIn, you can find me, Gala Jackson Dobbins over on LinkedIn, right? Come hang out with me there. I'm really excited because I just launched Substack. And for those of you that may not know what Substack is, it's a blogging platform that allows you to have real engagement with your audience just in a more meaningful way. So you can go and catch me on Substack. All of that stuff will be linked on Instagram and on my LinkedIn page and on my website. And you can pre-order the book right now, wherever books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Target, Amazon. You can search Gala Jackson, or you can search Courage, Clarity, and Confidence, Redefine Success in the Way You Work.
So good. And for those of you watching on the Ladies Get Paid YouTube and Facebook pages, come on over to the Ladies Get Paid LinkedIn. Because Gala is going to be posting all those links there. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn at Claire Wasserman. And I'm on Instagram at Claire Gets Paid. Last thing is we have tons of free events going on. But the way to get updated is by signing up for our newsletter. So ladiesgetpaid.com/subscribe. Thank you to everybody watching live and after the fact. And of course, to our special guest, Gala Jackson Dobbins. Love saying your name. It has a nice ring to it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really just an honor. I'm a huge fan of your work, Claire. So this is bucket list, dream come true checklist item. So thanks for the space today.
Oh, you're the best. All right. Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you all. And now go get paid. Bye. Yeah.